No, I mean, I was hoping by December 31, but everybody's screaming holidays and everything. So I'm guessing, I'm hoping that January. So, I mean, no problem. Just, we are waiting for, we have to resurvey. We have all those like 9 different parcels. We have to resurvey the gym auditorium so we can pull out what we own. I think so. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, so some of the property, like we kind of closed today, kind of on the. I mean, that one is quick as anything. The draw a deed that was that long, and just like, I don't get it, but and we're getting close on all of the numbers, kind of little bits and pieces that we're adding up to the whole closing. We got one along the 1 acre swap, which was taking forever to get that done. So now we're waiting for what we call the Rocky property right away, from 211 to the railroad track to have that access point. It's pretty much done. The paperwork is all signed up. We're trying to finish all that. We're really close.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular Aberdeen Town Board meeting of October 23, 2023. I know there's people that may be watching this at home or on their computer, and we welcome you also. Welcome everyone that are here tonight. There are agendas on the table where you came in, or if you have an item that you would like to speak on, if you would fill out a paper and give it to the clerk, we will know who you are. So if you're looking at the agenda, the first item is called to order, and then A is Pledge of Allegiance, if you would rise. Thank you. Go to item number 2, which is setting of the agenda.
There are no changes, Mayor, but I do want to point out that on the business item, let's see, it's 7C, which is a CZ zoning request. That is merely going to be just a request to basically to open it and then move it to the next meeting. The applicant requested it be delayed until November.
This is 7C.
Yes, sir.
Did everybody hear that?
7C, we're just gonna, you're gonna open it, and then we'll just make a motion to
It's not a
continue.
consent, right. That way we've opened it, it meets all advertising requirements, and then we reset it for the November.
November.
meeting, And I'll give you the date.
7C. All right. Is there a motion to accept the amended agenda?
Make a motion, we accept the amended
I
agenda.
second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right. Go to number 3, which is the consent agenda. All items listed below are considered routine or have been discussed at length in previous meetings will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will be held except on request by a member of the Board of Commissioners. A, consider approval of minutes of regular board meeting of September 25, 2023, and work session of October 9, 2023. B, consider approval of resolutions to memorialize the acceptance of the purchase of the property interest for the 3 properties on Highway 211 previously identified by North Carolina DOT and approved at the September 11, 2023 work session. C, consider approval of acceptance of purchase right-of-way from North Carolina DOT related to the 3 properties and/or signs owned by the town of Aberdeen for the upcoming US 1 project, and approve the creation of a resolution memorializing acceptance of the purchase of the property interest for the upcoming US 1 project. And D, consider authorizing town manager be named the designee hearing officer for any forthcoming set-off debt collection act appeals hearing.
Make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion from any board member? Any board member? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number, let me get to it. Number 4. All right, informal discussion and public comment, presentation of intermediate law enforcement certificate to Sergeant Anthony Williams in recognition for completion of Incredible Leadership Program Series 1-5. Chief, Assistant Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Board of Commissioners, Mr. Paul. I'm gonna have Sergeant Williams to come up. And tonight we'll be presenting Sergeant Williams with his intermediate certificate. Sergeant Williams started his career with Hamilton Police Department. Sergeant Williams came to Aberdeen Police Department in 2015. Sergeant Williams was promoted to Master Patrol Officer and then Patrol Sergeant in 2022. While at Aberdeen Police Department, he was very aggressive with his career development. Sergeant Williams was able to accumulate 32 points with 8 years of incredible service. Tonight, he will be awarded his intermediate certificate. I would like for everybody to keep in mind, each point is worth 20 hours. So he has to accumulate 20 hours to get 1 point, and tonight he'll be awarded his intermediate. It is the second highest law enforcement certificate you can get in North Carolina. I'm gonna have Sergeant Williams to stay up. Sergeant Williams is also getting recognized tonight for completing the Incredible Leadership Program through Wake Tech. Sergeant Williams is the first Aberdeen police officer to complete this series. It's a total of 500 hours. Some of the topics they focus on is building morale, supporting mid-level managers, supporting command staff, supporting community events, building public relations, and diversity in urban communities. And Sergeant Williams is the first Aberdeen officer to complete this. He did this on his own time, and he'll be presented with that tonight. Next, I'm gonna call Sergeant Covington up. Sergeant Covington is also going to be presented tonight with his intermediate certificate. He also started his career with the Hamilton Police Department. He was promoted to Master Patrol Officer and then Sergeant in 2023. Sergeant Covington also accumulated 32 points with 10 years of service. Tonight he'll be awarded his intermediate certificate, which is also the second highest award you can get in North Carolina. Every 20 hours equals 1 point. He's able to come up 20 points, 32 points. So congratulations.
For those of you that are watching this or seeing this or sitting in here, this is the safest place in Aberdeen right now. Thank you.
You're right.
Thank you, Chief. What an outstanding police department we have in Aberdeen. We're so proud of all of them. I'll close out 4, and we'll go to number 5. Manager's report. There we are.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Again, you have your written report in front of you on your desk. And the standard departmental updates from each month are included. And on the last page, a few other items just to bring to the board's attention. So just an update on the old Aberdeen Elementary School property. We are working with the developer, moving forward. So right now, we're negotiating and really just putting together the formal purchase contract. So it takes a while. Also, probably the more challenging part of this closing is going to be the survey. So we're just kind of waiting on that and have to resurvey the area that the town is going to maintain ownership of, the school and gym and auditorium area. And separate from that, and again, it remains to be seen. So we got your purchase contract. There's going to be a few agreements, and the question we're trying to work with TC on is whether that's part of the purchase agreement just referenced, and because those can take a little bit of time too. So we're trying to move that all forward all at one time. So a little bit of a lot of paper chasing right now. But again, moving forward, I think I've said early on since we awarded the upset bid on this project that I would like to, in the perfect world, close by the end of this calendar year. I don't know if that's going to happen. So if not, I still think we could probably close sometime in January. Just the holidays, I think it's going to be a tough time to catch everybody anytime during the month of December from the 15th through the 31st. So, but we'll keep moving that forward. The next item, the town was able to, as you may recall, bring under contract and close essentially 90% complete on the piece of property or properties that were near the lake park. You may recall that those were advantageous purchases for the town to pick up a little property, again, adjacent to, it's in that area between the bridge and the dam and going to Highway 5. So basically, one of the 2 owners of that property is out of town, lives in Virginia, and we've already cut the check for the purchase of that property. It's being held in escrow by the closing attorney. So that's all done. We have one of the 2 signatures on the property. I think the other one we'll probably get as early as tomorrow. I think it was an overnight situation. We couldn't do a DocuSign with that deed. They had to actually get a live signature. So we've done everything on our end. We're waiting for the sellers to sign that final document. And again, one of the 2 have already signed it. So we hope to have that wrapped up by tomorrow, maybe Wednesday at the latest. But I consider that essentially closed, just a little bit of paperwork remaining on that. So that's a good step because not all of these property matters, as the board is aware, have gone that quickly or that smoothly. So it took a little bit of time, but here we are. I'm already closing with that piece of property. Next item, so on the agenda on consent approved earlier, was the last of kind of a 2 big right-of-way / easement sales by the town of different pieces of property to DOT for different projects. You may recall back in September that the town, we sold certain right-of-way acquisitions and easements for the Highway 211 widening road project. And this one, which was approved earlier on the consent agenda, was for US 1. And so there were utility easements, some sign relocations, and other kind of construction uses of the property for 3 spots. One was the sign with our Parks and Rec building and some easements along that strip as it fronts US 1. The other one was the sign, a little bit of frontage, but just really utility easement-wise, where the old Aberdeen Elementary School is located. And the third one was our new police facility, the sign there, which the cost is to relocate that back closer to the building a little bit. And we've got money for all those things that was approved. But I wanted to give the board just an idea. So those 2 have now been approved. We've done the paperwork on the 211. So this paperwork with the US 1, we'll get that signed. The mayor will sign those documents this week. And We'll send it back to DOT, they finalize it, and they start processing the actual payment. So the one for the first properties on 211, that totaled $199,518. That one's already done, so we're kind of waiting for the payment on that. We concluded the other one tonight with our vote. The rest of the paperwork will be done this week and then sent to DOT. That amount, close to the same, but it was $189,800. And then on top of that, you may recall, it was in the weekly report, but a couple of years ago with the US 1 project, there was all that line work, and those who live off of Poplar know how long it's been under construction now, moving those water and sewer lines, and then digging a trench for the relocation of the Sutherland Pines main trunk line for water. It's been going on for what seems like forever. I think technically it's only been since June, but it's been several months, and it has been quite disruptive. But that is a DOT project. It is not a town project. So they're moving along as well as they can. The contractor, I think, is doing a pretty good job. Just seems to be taking a long time, but here we are going through that, and we got a few months before it's over, unfortunately. But part of that transaction was they're doing all the work, they're moving the lines at their own cost, and they pay us $375,000 as a reserve in case any abnormalities, discovered damage after the fact comes up in a year, 2 years for our water and sewer lines, that we have money to fix it. So that was about the only way it could be preserved, because obviously 2 years from now, if something comes up, we could say, oh, it was because of the DOT project, back in 2023. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was something else that happened more recently. So to do that, we resolved it with an amount of that amount. So we have basically a fund to fix any kind of line breaks or anything else that may come up. And so it's a pretty healthy fund. We actually got that check deposited last week. Butch worked hard with DOT to get that through the system and get payment because they're out there working. So we're like, hey, it's time for them to make good on their promise. So we also have those funds. So between those three items, the total amount of money that either we've received or will receive here with the two other right-of-ways, payment from DOT is $764,318. So the one I just spoke about with the water and sewer line, that will be a water and sewer fund reserve money that will be used for, really is for that amount. We don't necessarily, it's water and sewer money, we could use it technically for anything we want, but we can't come back and say we don't have money to DOT for fixing something that's broken. They have paid that debt, so we have that money, and we have placed it in a water and sewer capital reserve fund, so it's there, and that's made us pretty healthy in that regard. So I think we've just got to keep an eye on the Poplar Street improvements and make sure we know, remind ourselves, if something comes up, that DOT did fund that amount, and we should have money to fix a line or repair something if it comes up in the near future. The other amounts, the $189,800 and the $199,518 for the right-of-way, I mean, it depends on how you look at, if you look at the 211 project, you may recall the discussion about the signage and some of the parking lot improvements at the fire station on number 2 that we'll have to do. But of all those funds put together, you're pushing $400,000. There's probably maybe $50,000 to $60,000 of work that probably will need to be done, maybe a little bit more. The rest of that is really just money for DOT purchasing property rights, utility rights, not really to have to rebuild a sign on it. So there's a good net of that property. Those funds, the almost $400,000, those go into the general fund for general use. Of course, we've got estimates on, like, replacing the police department sign. I'm pretty certain that Chief Kosaka is going to want a sign back up pretty quickly when that one comes down. So that's something that we will do immediately. The old school sign, I mean, honestly, we've got to figure out at the appropriate time. We don't want to put up another school sign because it's not a school anymore. Do we want to reserve that area for a sign and just have a sign like monument that's there for the next project? That's something we need to decide later, but something to think about and keep in the back of our minds. So we've got a good amount of money, and obviously I haven't really mentioned the parks. We talked about that before, but that sign will be relocated and will be rebuilt. So those are 2 police and parks that we will rebuild. But again, we think we have more than adequate funding. Then you add the fire department on the separate amount for 211. We think we have more than adequate funds to pay for those. There'll be a good bit of money left over for general use. So that's a good thing, makes us healthy. Some of that will go into funds that Butch has come up with. He may mention those during his financial summary as we go through tonight's summary for the quarter. But those are good positives, and you probably, or it's already in the already booked, not for the September number, but for October, the 375, because that check is in the bank and received.
My wife
can I
said
ask
she won't say
Sorry.
the time and temperature sign at Aberdeen Elementary, Aberdeen Station.
Aberdeen Station.
Yeah.
Well, that one cost at the park, Mayor, that the donator, was it about 40,000? It's possible. It would be nice, actually. It would be nice.
Can I ask a question about Poplar Street? The Poplar Street project, that's being rerouted because of the widening of number 1, or is that due to the fact that
Yes.
that's part,
It's all
mostly?
part of, that's right. Yeah, so they had to move the Southern Pines
True.
water line, and to do that, they had to move our water and sewer lines to make room for it.
Right, because I've been, asked about how much longer is that going to be going on, and I didn't realize it would take as long
Now,
as it has.
are they planning on milling that down once they're done and resurfacing?
Oh, they're gonna resurface the whole thing.
They'll have to
Okay.
resurface
Yeah.
it.
It's awful.
I'm seeing a lot of complaints on
Me too.
social media and,
It is the number one question now in
yeah,
Aberdeen.
yeah.
It
Yeah,
used
well,
to-
clearly,
People are
they're not gonna
coming
leave that
to-
road like
it
that.
used to be the dime store building, now it's Poplar Street.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be a brand-new shiny road when they're through, so.
And you can't go, I know none of us go anywhere without somebody. I got caught yesterday at church about Poplar Street.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, and they just don't realize it. I mean, it's okay if you don't know it. Aberdeen doesn't own Poplar Street. So they ask us, when is Aberdeen going to do something about it? And I say, never. And they look at me like, never? You mean you're never going to fix the Poplar Street? And I said, no. I just let it go at that.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
so
on DOT to fix Poplar Street.
hopefully it'll be nice, shiny, and smooth when they're through. But
They-
they are going all the way to almost the end of Poplar.
Yeah, they're going
Hooks
way
with
up
US
there.
1. So
Yeah.
it won't be quite that intense, because once they're through with our water and sewer, it's a little bit more just putting in the Southern Pines water line for that pond. But it's a big water line, so
Yeah.
it's still a big project, so. And let's see, Mayor,
Let me ask you one other question. The 375,000 we would hold in case something happens that we can't foresee with Poplar Street with what the work they did.
well, we don't necessarily have to hold it for any period of time, but we can't say that the DOT has not funded any kind of repairs. We've assumed that risk now, and they paid us for it, so they are done with that, which is a fair deal. It's one way you can really do it, and it's a pretty healthy amount that we
Yeah, it is.
received. So it's in a general capital reserve fund. So I will tell you, we need to protect that, or know that internally we have funds available for anything that happens on Poplar to water and sewer. It's there, but I would say it's probably a mistake to let that money sit there for 20 years waiting for a
Well,
line to break.
that was
on
my question.
water.
How
So I
long can
just-
you sit on it?
I just think we have to have a reserve, and we always know, hey, we had 375,000 for that before we start using other monies, but we could in fact use it for something else. But I think, right now, we're in pretty good shape with water and sewer reserve, SDF reserves, other kind of water and sewer, expansion monies. We're in pretty good shape, so that won't be something we have to go to right away to use for some other project. So we're in good shape there, but I think it's something that we, as a board and as the management, and water and sewer, they've just got to kind of note for the record and for the history of the situation that money was there, and if it gets used for something else in 4 or 5 years, and then a need comes up in 5 or 6 years, hey, we had this money for that, so we can't really say we don't have the funds for it. We can say it just came to fruition a little bit later than it could have. And hopefully it will never, there'll just be normal wear and tear on the lines, and we will be fine. But there are some lines there that aren't being changed, that are older lines, that those are the ones we're more concerned about than the ones that they are moving. There are some older ones there, so when they start to break, whatever, we have some money to go in and replace those. And DOT would say, well, we didn't break them or damage them, so we shouldn't be paying for you to build new lines for Aberdeen, but we didn't work in that area, or we didn't move those lines. And we would say, well, we think maybe it had an impact. So to work that out, we have money that we can replace some old lines that they really didn't touch, but maybe it had an impact. We can replace them. We have some money to do that, if you look at it that way. That would be further up the road where they really didn't relocate them. They're just there. If they get impacted, then we have money to go and replace them.
Okay, thank you.
So a couple more quick items, Mayor. On the Iron Horse project, I mentioned that earlier with the, we've got the closing of the 1 acre swap. That is already, paper documents are signed, so that one is essentially completed. And we're very close to, I think all the documents are completed. I think they're signed. They may be waiting on 1 or 2 signatures, but it appears that everything is in print, and there's waiting to swap some signatures on the right-of-way, and then the final closing, which should happen by the end of this week or early next week, Mayor, for the main closing with Iron Horse, barring some other, typical kind of closing delay that's out of our hands. So things that we control, we feel like we're almost there, and we've done. So anything that's on the closing, you know how closings, again, outside of that, if there's any kind of title issue or something that comes up at the end, that'd be between Moore County Partnership and the Three Rivers Land Trust, who's selling the property, for them to work out. But they both they're used to working together. They've been very patient, so I think they will get it done, hopefully as soon as possible with that. But the end is fairly, or finally in sight now for that project. The last time I have, Mayor, I've reported several times about the CVB grant where we applied for 2 different potential projects. So I did hear at the end of last week that the CVB board is meeting tomorrow. I think they meet at 5 o'clock. That seems to be their normal time. You may remember, Mayor, it might be 4, but they are going to make a public and final decision, barring some other delay on those awards tomorrow at that meeting. So
Do you know where they're meeting?
I don't. I know they've met at the Pinehurst at the Country Club North Carolina. I know they've met there a few times.
The last.
I don't know. I can find out though.
Yeah, the only time I've been was at CCNC.
Yeah, I don't know that for sure, but if you're interested in going, I'll track that down for you.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to know. I'd really like to know as soon as possible. But that'll be. I think the staff's already made its recommendations, but nothing's public yet, and so that will be sent to the board, CVB board, to be voted on and finalized, and they'll do that in a public meeting, it sounds like.
If you can find out where and when,
Okay.
maybe some of the others on the board, but I'd be interested in hearing what they say.
Yeah, that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll close 5 and go to number 6, monthly and quarterly financial report. Financial Director Watson.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. I'll try to be as efficient as possible with your time tonight. I have before you a hard copy of what is also on the screen for the people at home. First of all, take a look at the memo in front. It says general summation of our year-to-date fiscal activity for revenues and expenditures for the general fund, water and sewer, and the capital projects funds. First one is for revenues through September. We were at $5,980,000. I'm gonna round them off tonight, and that's basically a 38.64% collection at that point in time for the whole general fund. The expenditures were at $3,745,000. That means we've expensed 24.20%. So the difference there is about 14.44%. Our revenues are above expenditures through the end of September by $2,234,000. Some highlights of the revenues for the real and personal property tax collections through the end of September. we had 73.53% collections, and that obviously is collected by the county board's tax collections office. So we received $4,608,000 compared to the budget of $6,266,000. We'll get some more money probably into this month, early October, and through January, then it starts going back down again. That's where that stands at this point, and this is pretty much more case. Motor vehicle tax revenue, which is collected on a monthly basis, we're at $74,412.03. 19.60%, so we're right above budget on that. And I would like to go back to the first one. There's no change through today for any collections through today in October for real and personal property tax, nor the motor vehicle tax. We'll again get that between now and the end of the month. For fire, real and personal property tax, we're at 31.49% collections, or received $96,411 of budget, and we have not received any money this month as well for that one. Garbage fee revenues were 18.79% through the end of September. We have sent out bills already, email, and the mail ones, I call them snail mail, mails the next couple of days go out. So we have increased our garbage fee revenues because that accounts receivable hit the books. We have received or billed $242,599, or 37.61%. And we've only had 2 billing cycles this year. Okay. Building permit revenues were 23.47% end of September. Collections was $70,409. As of today, we're $83,737, or 27.91%. Sales tax revenue, 1 month collections, we're 9.68%, or received $337,000. As of today, $643,544 collections, or 18.48% collections. Utility franchise tax collections, 20.52%, a budget of 114,000 collection. No changes, that we get that money from the state on a quarterly basis. And then power bill revenue, we received that in September. We have 50.28%, or $142,291 collection. No change. We'll get the next check on that in December, 1st of January. So that's where we stand today on general fund. Any questions? On the water and sewer fund, on the system development fees, we were 37.05% collections, or $95,981. As of today, we were at 42.05%, or $108,928. Water and sewer revenues, 18.93% collection end of September, for $690,000. As of today, we're at $1,531,000 collected or billed at 41.98%. Water and sewer tax revenue, we were at 54.13% at the end of September, or $49,800 collected. Today, we're at $56,900, or 61.85% collected. And then bulk water for Moore County revenue, we were at 48.10% at the end of September, or $204,000 collected or billed. Today, we're at $272,000 collected or billed, or 64.11%. So way ahead of budget on that one, and thankfully so on that one. We like people to buy our water, that's for sure. I did not go over the revenue expenditure for water and sewer fund, but we were at revenues of $1,057,000, expenditures $1,014,000, so we're net gain of $42,532, and again, that's right before the cycle that we just beat, so that will go up next time you see these numbers. So overall, for both of the main operating funds, we're at $2,277,000 net profit at the present time. That's on the operating funds of general fund and water sewer fund. Any questions on those two?
Any questions?
Now, on the next page, you no longer see the police project, because that's closed out. So the major project funds now are Sportsplex, AIA Grant Fund, and the 211 project. And there has been no activity in the AIA Grant Project Fund to date. We have a meeting on that tomorrow on some things, so we'll start seeing that show up a little bit. On the Sportsplex, it's basically the same as it was as the end of August. Hasn't changed any. So we're basically $1,600,000 received, collected, and expenditures are $2,047,000. Then on the NC 211 project, that's been a little bit of activity there. I think it was like $2,650 from engineering fees we pay out, and the DOT will reimburse us for those. But that's where we stand as of today. So overall, it shows we've got $450,000 net loss, but again, this is a capital project fund, so this is multi-year funds, so that's how they work. Any questions on the memo? So the next form, and I'll move this down for the people at home to see. This is just a detail of what I just talked about. I'd like to give you some on a quarterly basis. It's broken down by 4 components. Salary and benefits, general operating expenditures, capital outlay, and debt service. And those totals will total what's on our memo, but I'd like to provide you, again, a little bit more detail on it on a quarterly basis. But I would like to point out a couple things. If you take a look at the overall total expenditures for 22-23 at the end of September, and the overall expenditure for 23-24, for 23-24, we have spent less money in percentage basis than we did prior year. I just want to point that out to you. Next thing I'm going to show you is on the water sewer fund, basically the same thing is the case. Water sewer and general fund both have spent on a percentage basis less money than we did the prior year.
This same time last year.
Pardon?
At this same time last
At
year.
the same time, on the
Same day.
percentage basis, because obviously the budgets are higher in a dollar amount, so I look at percentages. Also on the revenue side, we're basically where we were last year, both of those. On the capital project and grant project funds, what you see there is the line items that we have in actual in the budget, what's budgeted for each line and what's expended for each line at that point in time. Then it gives a little bit of detail for those line items. I'm not going to go over all of those because it'll probably take half an hour to talk about those. But it just shows where we are. But if you notice the total for the revenues and expenditures, they match up what's on the memo on a growth basis. But overall, if you take a look at the 2 operating funds and the 3 capital project funds at the present time, our budget for the town of Aberdeen is $22,884,000. If you look at it on that basis.
That's not including power bill.
Pardon?
That doesn't include the power bill.
No, it
That's
does
just
not.
operational.
No, it does on the revenue side and expenditure side.
Okay.
That's part of the general fund. Any questions on this spreadsheet?
Well, I noticed immediately that salaries had gone down. Is that due to non-retention of employees?
No,
or,
which line item?
From 2022, 23 to current,
Yeah, they went
like
up.
$1 million?
Yeah, they went up.
Okay, yeah, they went up, sorry.
They
I was
went
reading
up.
it the wrong way,
Yeah.
sorry.
The prior year is shown first.
Okay.
2023 is next.
But over a whole year's time, that's not a huge increase overall for money, so we've saved a lot.
Right.
It's good.
If you know, any other questions? And the last form I want to take a look at is the deposits and investments at the end of September. And I'd like you to look at the totals on the left side and the right side. That's our increase in deposits from last year, this time in September to this year, was $1,075,000. I'd like to point out that does not, this year does not include any ARP money. So we didn't get any ARP money this fiscal year. So basically, you know, if it's included in last year's and you took that $1,272,000 out, we'd be up like $2.3 million range. But still, we're up over $1 million from year over year. Now, I also have it broken down by the type of deposits we have at two banks that we deal with, plus the capital management trust account. And interest rates are higher than they were last year, so that helps us definitely. Any questions on the report of deposits and investments?
Any questions? Joe, would you come up to the microphone just a second? I want to ask you a question so everybody can hear it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
This is pertaining to the water sewer. I don't have the figure. I think you probably do. I hope I didn't caught you off guard. The town of Aberdeen sells water to the Moore County water system. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What is the volume of that sale? It's reoccurring every year. Is that correct?
Yes, this summer they average 700 to 900,000 per day.
Per day?
Yes, sir.
That's gallons, 700 to 900 gallons per day that the town sells to the Moore County water system. Is that correct? That's a lot of water. And it's not over the dam. So this goes to the Moore County water system, which they use that water to go into their system. And do you know where it goes when it gets to them?
It splits between Pinehurst and Seven Lakes.
Pinehurst and Seven Lakes. Okay. Some people may have noticed that there was, in my opinion, a disparaging story in a recent issue of the Pilot, where I don't know who this person is, that said, "Don't drink the Aberdeen water." So I would suggest the Pilot warn the people in Pinehurst and Seven Lakes, because he evidently knows more about water than you do. So I just want to make that remark because I thought it was an uncalled for slander against the town of Aberdeen to say don't drink the water in Aberdeen when we're selling 700 to 900,000 gallons to the Moore County water system. So I just wanted to make sure that we were talking figures, facts and figures. Thank you. All right, we're going to close out 6 and go to 7. Consider approval of an ordinance of temporary road closures in Legacy Lakes on Saturday, November 18, 2023, from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. for the turkey trot.
Mr. Mayor, Board, as you just read, the Legacy Lakes HOA has requested a temporary road closure for November 18th between 8 a.m. and 11 on Kerr Lake Road, Warren Lake Road, and Legacy Lakes Road. This is a reoccurring event for their turkey trot that they run annually, just like they ran recently with their with the police department. Staff did our analysis on it. This is a reoccurring event. Again, this isn't something that we see should. Our recommendation is to approve it. Police departments met with them. Fire departments met with them. We brought them into TRC. Their application looks identical to every other one that they've submitted. So again, our recommendation is to approve it.
I make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion about this. It is a reoccurring event, and they do a good job of making sure traffic can get through.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Our
Yeah.
police were very present in several locations. I ran it last year, and
Okay.
it goes quickly.
Good, good.
I think, just to add to it, they requested the times from 8 to 11, and they normally run a 5K, approximately a little over 3 miles. This year, they're thinking about bringing that down to a 1.5 mile. So if they do bring it down, then the road closure would be even shorter.
Sure. Okay. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Go to B, text amendment, TA 2301, request submitted by the Town of Aberdeen to amend various chapters of the Unified Development Ordinance. Amendments are to include updated language as required by Chapter 160D of the North Carolina General Statutes, Main Street Program Organization, as well as staff recommended minor amendments to various chapters for clarity and efficiency. And this is a public hearing.
Mr. Mayor and Board, just to give you a little background, during recent sessions of the North Carolina General Assembly, there's minor revisions to the general statute, specifically in 160A-175. This revision, and this is actually a few years old, so we're a little bit behind on getting this updated, but as I was going through the certified zoning official course, they identified this as a change. I looked at our UDO, noticed that we weren't in line with it, so brought it for you as a text amendment. But this revision specifies that no ordinance adopted pursuant to the General Statute, Chapter 160D, except for ordinance related to unsafe buildings, can have a criminal penalty attached to it. This means there can't be a criminal penalty attached to our UDO for code enforcement if somebody would have their grass too tall and they refuse to cut it. We, by general statute, used to be able to go and it would be a class 1 misdemeanor, and we had it stated like that within our UDO. Currently, you cannot do that. Moving on, we've identified the 2.46 within the UDO and other language within Chapter 2. It wasn't in line with the general statute, and specifically 160D for public notification requirements. This placed added requirements in the Planning Inspections Department that are not required in accordance with 160D and also for 406, and then quasi-judicial procedures, 160D 601, and then procedures for adopting, amending, or repealing development regulations in 160D 602, notice of hearing on proposed zoning amendments. Essentially, what these text amendments that I'm going to present to you do, they align us with exactly what 160D says that we have to do for public notification, and it doesn't add to or take away from it. What we did have was a lot of additional things added to it, which simply costs a lot of money on taxpayers. When we send out registered mail going out 300 feet from where we would only have to do abutting properties, or places additional requirements on staff when we're sending out 50 mailings versus 5 mailings, and then also aligns it to where we don't have to do the additional. Our UDO currently states that we would have to do publish notices for places for types of zoning that we did not have to do them in. And I'll get into that more a little bit later, but just kind of give you an overview on it. And then upon renewal of the Main Street Program membership in 2023, staff found the need to update the DAB, or Downtown Aberdeen Advisory Board Rules of Procedure, and UDO 2.327 or Charlie 7 to be in line with the Main Street Program 4-point approach. The 4-point approach creates subcommittees that the Downtown Aberdeen Advisory Board has implemented to include organization, economic vitality, design, and promotion to better serve the board and their roles, responsibilities, and overall growth and development at Aberdeen. And then updates in Chapter 3 and 4 of the UDO to clarify language of of where multifamily is permitted, and to clarify industrial heavy equipment language with heavy being half ton and above. For truck repair and customization, currently we only identify light and medium weight vehicle repair and customization, and so we wanted to make those changes as well. We went through our analysis. We found that all of these are in line, and our recommendation is to approve it. We brought it to the planning board last Thursday. Their recommendation was to approve all changes with one minor amendment, which I set a paper in front of all of you to go through that in a minute. I want to take the time and go through the text amendments first. So this one is 232 for the Downtown Advisory Board. It essentially takes the 3 subcommittees, turns them into 4 subcommittees, and changes it from entrepreneur recruitment, home decor and design, arts and culture. Those are not in line with the Main Street program, with Main Street programs identified as the 4 subcommittees of organization, economic vitality, design, and promotion. That would be change 1. 246 for public notification, with the published notice for appeal, certificate of appropriateness, reasonable accommodation, special use, the text amendment for planning board, text amendment for, published notice for variance. Those are all not required by general statute. And then changing the language in the conditional zoning, development agreement, land use plan amendment, reasonable accommodation, special use, vested rights certificate, zoning map amendment to be in line with general statute. And then taking out the planning board notification, posted notification, as it's not a requirement, as you all know, planning board is an advisory board, it's not a legislative or a quasi-judicial board. So we're doing double work, and it kind of contradicts to what general statute says, because it states when a legislative hearing is happening or a quasi-judicial, you're supposed to post between 10 and 25 days on the property. So if we posted it at the planning board too, we would be, if it's a week ahead of time, then we would be outside of that 25-day mark, and it does specifically say no earlier than the 25 days and no later than 10 days. Continuing on down, changing the language to add clarity. For 1, we're requesting this be taken out where it just says posted or published notice provided once at least 10 days before hearing. That is not a requirement, nowhere in general statute. And then for number 2, we're looking for clarity here to where it specifically had before mailed notice provided to affected owners and landowners within 100 feet of the subject lot or site between 10 and 25 days before the hearing. When it comes to staff analysis and us doing our job, this does not give a clear definition going into the general statute on 160D. It does, where we're asking for it to be completely in line verbatim, where it states mailed notice provided to the person who submitted the application, owner of the property that is the subject of the hearing, and the owners of all parcels of land abutting the parcel of land that is the subject of the hearing between 10 and 25 days before the hearing. I also wanted to add in there a secondary notice option when you have more than 50 properties that are being affected per 160D 602, optional notice for large-scale zoning map amendments. If the zoning map amendment proposes to change the zoning designation of more than 50 properties owned by at least 50 different property owners, the local government may elect to publish a notice to replace the mailings, provided that each advertisement shall not be less than 1/2 page of the newspaper in size. Property owners who reside outside of the newspaper circulation area, according to the address listed on the most recent tax listing for the affected property, shall be notified by certified mail. So essentially, if we wanted to do a zoning map amendment to our zoning map and it affected more than 50 properties, we could publish that instead of doing registered mails for hundreds of people. We can actually post that in the newspaper, run it 2 weeks in a row, and then we still have the requirement to send out mailings to people who do not live in those areas, like say a property that Commissioner Godwin owns in Aberdeen, but she doesn't live at that address, then she would still have to be notified by mail, even though we published it in paper, because she doesn't live at that actual address. Number 3, removing this language, posted notice provided between 10 and 25 days before the hearing. Again, it didn't add clarity, so going straight to 160D, the town shall post a notice of the hearing on the site that is subject to the hearing or on an adjacent street or highway right-of-way between 10 and 25 days before the hearing, with at a minimum the time, date, town contact information, and the matter to be heard at the public hearing. That last sentence is probably the most important of those, because since I've been here, I have not seen once that information was added to our published notice of all, and I have been working to update our signs and get in line with general statute and make sure that we're doing right by the town, because we are required to identify during that time at a minimum the time, date, town contact information, and the matter to be heard on that posted notice. Removing number 4 because it's again arbitrary, and it was added to. It's basically restating something that was already stated in a previous portion of this. So bringing it all in line with 160D again. Same with number 5, mail notice provided to affected owners and landowners within 300 feet. It adds a lot of strain onto the planning department, and it also affects the taxpayers. I think last year we paid almost $30,000 in registered mails just on sending out registered mail. If we were able to go in line with general statute, I think that we would save significant money and fund and personnel hours on being in line with the general statute. Number 8, again, removing it, posted notice required at least 2 locations along the street less than 10 days of the hearing. It's arbitrary against what general statute states, and we have clarifying language within there now that really brings it to the general statute. And then the same with number 10, mailed notice provided to all landowners abutting the street between 20 and 25 days before the hearing. That's all been addressed now throughout updating it. This portion right here within the packet, as you see, this is where planning board had made a recommendation. Again, the planning board recommendation was they all voted in favor with one amendment to the proposed amendments that I made. So the initial staff recommendation, pull this up real quick.
So it says you shall place a notice on the site versus the first one says place a sign. Is that what it originally said?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
We can't hear you.
I said the first one, the second one's saying that you're going to place a notice on the site still. How does that change from the original? Can you go back to that one? I know we do that. Here, yeah, so we're taking out a sign, and we're now putting a notice. So how is that different than what we have?
Thing. This was for general statute language, but again, after last Thursday and getting the recommendation from the planning board, I've given you the packet to look in front, or that's in front of you to look at, to really clarify this. I agreed with the planning board after we talked about this a lot, because what it doesn't do is when you look through here on number 3, it told you where to post it it just said post notice between 10 and 25 days before the hearing. So now we've added the clarity of not only when you have to post it, but what has to be on there. But then what wasn't on there was in a subsection, so you would have to scroll down and continue to read, and it stated a sign shall be placed on the property, subject property, and the location so that it's clearly visible to the travel portion of the respective street where the land subject to the notice does not have frontage on the public street. The sign shall be erected on the nearest street right away with an attached notation generally indicating direction and distance of the land. When I was first doing this, I was like, let's ask the board to get rid of anything that the general statute doesn't place as a requirement onto the planning department. Talking with the planning board, we spoke about it, and they asked to amend this and keep this red language in, because what it does is it clarifies that, okay, if you have a property and it's off of a private road, you still have a requirement to place a posting to the nearest right-of-way where the average citizen driving by would be able to notice that. My recommendation is that we remove it from section 1 and just add this paragraph that clarifies that if it's not seen, because it's on a private drive, that we add that as a second paragraph in number 3. So then it's all in one section. It tells you, hey, this is how you have to post it with what information. And oh, by the way, if it's not in the public view, now you have clarity on where exactly you need to post it as well. It's all in one space instead of being in different sections.
But it's still going to be the same.
Still going to be the same.
Sign stuck in the ground. It's just going to have more different information on its own.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And our UDO right now did not state that. So our signs going out would just say, there's a public hearing. For more information, contact the town of Aberdeen. Continuing, so this is something that town manager and I have talked a lot about. We've had many conversations about this, but there's in chapter 3.32, 3, 4, 5, and 3.4.2, it all identifies in these little sections single family attached and multifamily. This causes a lot of confusion, especially when you're talking to developers and they say, well, it says multifamily right there. But these are zoning districts that we don't allow the multifamily to be in. So we're just asking to remove this to give clarity. Single family attached is allowed. Multifamily is not allowed. We do have multifamily that's allowed in certain zoning districts that verbiage is in and it needs to stay in, but for these specific residential districts, recommend that we take it out, because I get a ton of questions daily to where the developer will be like, well, this says multifamily. And I'm like, well, it's not permitted use by right in 4.1.9. And then moving to 3.6.4, this is updated language for our conditional zoning. Essentially right now, with the way our conditional zoning is written, it restricts anybody to ask for a conditional zoning for anything that is less restrictive to the parallel zoning standards. What that does is it stops anybody from asking for a conditional zoning, because the only reason you come for a conditional zoning is to get a zoning or a use or whatever else you can get a conditional zoning in that is less restrictive than the current zoning. So I've worked with TC pretty in depth on this one, and we've recommended that this is the updated language where it takes out, which may not be less restrictive than the regulation for a parallel general zoning district, and changing that to applicable use and development standards may be varied such such that uses otherwise not allowed in the parallel general zoning district may be allowed, and/or development standards may be increased or lowered by condition in the conditional zoning district. This allows any citizen of Aberdeen to come in and say, hey, I'd like to do a conditional zoning right now. My R20 area doesn't allow multifamily, but we want to ask for a permitted use or zoning that is not there. And they can bring that to the board, and as long as it doesn't fall, as long as it isn't looked at as completely out of the entire zoning, and it just doesn't fit in, like if you were asking to put a McDonald's in the middle of a large R20 area, then we bring it to you all and you could make that decision. Currently, right now, we could not do that because of the way our conditional zoning language is written. And then in chapter 4.2.6, again, this is an area where we've identified within our commercial use classifications that identifies light and medium weight vehicles for repair and customization. Then you go to a subsection and it describes heavy equipment as an industrial use, but it doesn't talk about heavy equipment when it comes to vehicles. So if somebody wanted to open up a business and they wanted to do diesel repair or full-size truck repair, 18-wheeler repair, we don't have a place for that within any of our zoning districts because it, again, identifies light, medium, does not identify heavy. So we've seen that and we said, repair of heavy equipment is considered industrial services, which was already there, but to include heavy, half-ton and above truck repair and customization, and then clarifying that in section C of 4.2.6, repair service of automobiles, motorcycles, and light and medium trucks are considered vehicle establishments. Heavy, half-ton and above truck repair and customization is considered industrial.
So if we change that, we're changing that tonight, or that's still gonna have to come before us if someone wanted to do that?
These are all coming before you tonight for a motion now.
Okay.
And then chapter 9 for enforcement. This is talking again about updates in 160 that prohibit 160D, or that change 160D to essentially take away us being able to put misdemeanors on, or give somebody a misdemeanor for code enforcement. We can only apply civil penalties. So changing the verbiage to as authorized by General Statute 113 Alpha 64B, any person who knowingly and willfully violates the soil and erosion control ordinance in section 63, or who knowingly or willfully initiates or continues land disturbing activity for which soil and erosion and sedimentation control plan is required, except in accordance with the terms, conditions, and provisions of an approved plan, shall be guilty of a Class 2 misdemeanor that may include a fine not to exceed $5,000. So when it comes to erosion and sedimentation control, we still have the ability, but there is a cap on it when it comes to Class 2 misdemeanor. And then
So is that a one-time penalty?
it is.
Okay.
It is.
But this would help us in these cases where we're having development and the soil is eroding, going in the roads, and people are complaining about their yards being full with water. This could cover that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But as you see, they took out is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by imprisonment
We
not
had
to
it,
exceed 90
yeah.
days. Can't do
It's
that
just-
anymore.
We just, yeah.
And then in section B of code enforcement, also where it said all other violations. So this is your average everyday violation for the calls we get about people having too many vehicles in their yard, their grass is too high. Pick your poison on code enforcement. There's hundreds of them to where we used to be able to go out and issue a criminal penalty. That's no longer legal. So the legal language is violation of the flood damage prevention ordinance as authorized by General Statute 143-215.58. Any willful violation of any portion of flood damage prevention, i.e. section 6.4 shall constitute class 1 misdemeanor, but it does take away the ability to implement criminal penalties on
Yeah.
those, daily code enforcement infractions for putting a sign where you weren't supposed to.
Wait a minute, that's,
Yeah, come back to
that's a class, the one above is a class 2 misdemeanor.
That's authorized per general statute for criminal penalties on soil and erosion control specifically.
Okay, so class 1 misdemeanor is different than a class 2, obviously.
That's right.
So can,
This is for flood damage prevention specifically,
which one?
this B.
Okay,
So 1 talks about violations of erosion and sedimentation control. Again, this is something that TC and I worked on, and his recommended language from the lawyer, working to make sure that our UDO is in line with state laws. Where before it was written that we were able to, for any violation. You got a question, sir?
Yeah, point of clarity, just for the board. So your violation and erosion control sediment, that penalty is like if their ponds don't do what they're supposed to do and all of that, and you find them in violation. That's what that penalty's for. And then for the flood damages, once it leaves the site and causes damage to someone's property,
Yes.
that's a separate penalty.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure,
Yes, sir.
because I work in the industry, so I just want to make
Right.
sure that it's explained properly to the board.
However, for the other penalties that we have within code enforcement, they're no longer criminal penalties. We still have some civil penalty, so we're still able to fine, we're just not able to criminally charge.
all right, so the class 2, you can find someone not to exceed 5,000. What's the penalty for class 1?
It's a class 1 misdemeanor, so I think that's the highest misdemeanor.
But I mean, is there a
there a
monetary
amount? Yeah.
fee?
I do not know that number off the top of my head. I think that's something that TC would specifically handle if it came to flood damage.
I think that needs, I mean, you explained class 2, but it's not explained in class 1.
Maybe it's 5,000 plus.
Well, it doesn't say that.
I know,
So
but I'm just saying.
we need to get
if
that
it's
one
below
clarified.
Well,
If it's
Probably if
5,000.
you look at the general statute, it'll tell you what it
It
says.
needs, yeah, you probably
and
could.
the-
It just needs to be in hours.
But I think what he's trying to say is there might not be a set number there. That's why he said it would be up to TC to go after it under that general statute. There might not be a maximum or a minimum. It depends on.
Based on how much
possible.
damage.
It could be a damage report.
Okay.
Yeah, could we, John, could we under that, on that point, could we add the language, so this go under the B section, class 1 misdemeanor, could we say, I don't know, trying to, without oversimplifying it, and certainly TC'd have to weigh in on it, but could we add to the end, class 1 misdemeanor, shall constitute class 1 misdemeanor and a fine of up to the statutory maximum amount? That way, whatever it says in the North Carolina state law, and if it changes 4 times over the next 10 years, we always have that ability.
Yeah, I think.
And
that's-
that, Mayor, I think answers your question of, hey, let's not give up on whatever, and, so if that's one change, the board's okay to incorporate in there. Other question I had, John, you mentioned the other civil penalties, because this is dealing with the, criminal, I don't have the whole UDO, but do you recall, I mean, isn't there another civil penalty section, that just talks about civil penalties, elsewhere?
Within our UDO.
Yeah,
I believe there is. I've been focused on this section over the last month, but what I can do is look at that language and make sure that it is in line and up to date as well. The rule, though, is essentially the town can implement a civil penalty, but it has to be in line with the crime or the civil, violation of our code enforcement issue. So we can't go out and charge somebody $1,000 a day for having their grass too high. But from what I've seen within our code enforcement and our previous code enforcement officers, that we are completely in line with the general statutes and making those. But again, going through and continuing to look at potential text amendments, that's something that I would bring up. And if this was voted on, and a motion was made to approve it, I would ensure before publishing section B that I would add that additional language, and I'll send it to TC as well, if there is that specific language, and then I can send it to the mayor so that you have it, sir, and you can tell me, yeah, you're good to go, publish that. So that's the text amendments. Planning board and I last Thursday, I went through them kind of like this, and we opened it up for discussion. So if you guys have any questions for me, I'll turn it over to you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So all the residential single families, whether it's or 15, 20, or whatever it is, 30, now the only difference is now we single family attached, and we have multi also. We just added multi.
No, taking out multifamily, because it's never been allowed there.
Okay.
Multifamily is allowed in RM6, and it's allowed in R10, and I think off the top of my head, I have to look at 4.1.9, but I believe it's allowed in some of our central district business, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that, though. But where it wasn't allowed was R15 up to R30, and then I think O&I, office institutional, correct. So when a developer would come in and look at this, they would say, hey, this says single family attached and multifamily. So they believed that we allowed multifamily in these zoning districts, but then when you go down to 4.1.9 to our permitted uses by right, it's not allowed in those districts. So it's confusing.
Go to the footnote of that other one you got on the screen. Did you copy the footnotes over?
I'm sorry?
There you go.
Yes. I know you're going to talk about number 3 specifically, right?
Yes.
Right.
I think some of those footnotes were copied from table to table to table, were they not?
I think they were as well. And these are conversations that, again, the town manager and I have lots of conversations about for hours, and specifically that one for developments with more than 3 units. Minimum lot width has increased by 5 feet per unit at a maximum of 120 feet. And what that comes to is single family attached versus multifamily, and Paul and I are still looking at this, and a duplex being where there is a wall between 2 buildings, but they have their individual lot. So it's like, for instance, my townhome. I own the townhome. I own the property from that wall, and then a little lot within it. If you look at a single family attached, it may be a building that is Dutch Landing. That whole development is one lot. So if you were ever to turn that into a condo and sell it, you're only buying the interior. You don't get a lot with that as well. Versus multifamily being
Yes. I mean, I think
apartment building.
Yeah, I think you switched it a little bit. It's like single family attached would be like John said, like a typical townhome, where you have 4 units, okay?
Yeah.
And the walls are attached, and the owners actually own the land in the front, typically, and in the back. There might be a little patio. They own the real estate. Whereas a condo might be 4 units or whatever, and they don't own the yard in the front and back. They own inside the walls. So when this says single family attached, it's really talking about consistently in our UDO as a townhome situation, not an apartment situation, not a condo situation, where you own the dirt outside your dwelling, but you share a wall, at least one, if not 2 walls, depending on where your unit's located. And that's where it kind of the changes, it makes sense. It's internally consistent. When you add single-family attached, and then you also have multifamily, it really doesn't make much sense. So the single-family attached really is, to John's point, the townhome situation, where you own a unit, they're connected, they are attached, but they are single-family. So when you look it up in a deed, you see the unit, you see a narrow lot that's attached, and that is single-family, and it is conveyed that way, as opposed to a condo, which says unit 15A, whatever, and you own the interior walls, but you don't, there's a homeowner or property association that takes care of all the land outside the walls.
I believe what this really falls down to is what falls into subdivision standards and what doesn't, based off of the lot. Is Ducks Landing does not, but my neighborhood, that has 80 townhomes in it, but they're all individual lots, fall into a subdivision standard. That makes sense.
As long as the definitions in the UDO lay it out, we're good to go.
Yes, sir. And what we're trying to do is provide clarity and just adjust the language a little bit so that these questions don't continue to come up.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone tonight that would like to speak during this public hearing? Anyone? We need to close this out. Do we need a motion to close this out? Paul, do we need a motion to close this?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll close that out. Thank you.
Sir, I did address the motions for the vote on this. On the packet that I gave you, there's actually 8 motions when it comes to a text amendment, and then a final motion on the back of that page.
And Mayor and the board, if there's an intent to approve, as recommended, just FYI, the motions 1 through 7, there would be in the positive, the is, or the would, but be careful, motion 8 is a would not, would be the positive motion to approve it. So it tries to line it up and it tricks you at the very end there, but that's the way, planning works sometimes. And then at the next page, it's got 3 more motions for the final approval.
Number 2 is in the positive, you said?
Number 8, ma'am. So if you see
No,
number.
she's asking for clarity,
Yeah, he
because
said,
it says is
No,
or
you're
is
right,
not
you're
in
right, I'm
conflict.
sorry.
Yeah,
2
number
is
2
also,
is
is
negative.
not, you're right, thank you.
okay.
Okay. All right, I make a motion TA-2301 is consistent with the town's adopted policy guidelines.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes.
I make a motion that TA 23-01 is not in conflict with any provision of this Unified Development Ordinance or the Town of Aberdeen Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
TA-2301 is required by changed conditions.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Close that one. That was approved.
I make a motion TA-2301 does address a demonstrated community need.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Make a motion that TA 2301 does address an unforeseen matter not present when the Unified Development Ordinance was adopted.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion from the board. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
TA 23-1 is consistent with the purpose and the intent of the zoning districts in this Unified Development Ordinance, or would improve compatibility among uses and ensure efficient development within the town.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I make a motion TA-2301 would result in a logical and orderly development pattern.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Make a motion that TA 23-01 would not result in significantly adverse impacts on the natural environment, including but not limited to water, air, noise, stormwater management, wildlife, vegetation, and the natural functioning of the environment.
Second.
Motion and heard a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I make a motion to approve the presented text amendments.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And Mayor, I'd ask for one more motion. I do this sometimes when things are kind of long like this. If the board would approve a motion to allow editorial consistency to make sure that when it gets in the UDO, it reads as it should.
So moved.
Sometimes, yeah, thank you. Sometimes you gotta change a few words here and there.
Second.
Is it,
I said so moved.
okay, so moved in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carried. Was that all of them?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we can close D. And we'll go to C, and this is, we will open that, is that correct?
Yes.
This is a public hearing.
Board members, Mr. Mayor, this is an item that was brought to us by Ms. Farah, who's in the public audience, and Habitat for Humanity is seeking partnership with the town of
This
Aberdeen.
is, we're on C, as in cat,
C.
not
Oh,
D.
sorry. I put my horse in front of the cart, or the cart in front of the horse. CZ 2302, this is one that we're asking for a continuance due to the applicant requesting a continuance to go into the next meeting.
I make a
So-
motion that we do.
We need to open it. We've opened
Oh.
it, correct?
Yeah.
All right,
We
go ahead.
opened the public hearing.
All right, go ahead.
Make a motion, we open it up for public hearing.
Second.
Did you make a motion to open it?
I thought we were making a
Because
motion to
we have
continue
open
it.
and
Yeah,
then we have to
yeah.
make a motion to continue it.
So it wasn't open prior to this?
No, because they asked to continue it, so.
Okay, so, all right. So there's a motion
To open it
to open
in a
this,
second.
and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Now, there's a motion to,
No, I make a motion that we continue it. Are we doing it at our work session, or are we doing it at the next general meeting?
Looks like work session.
The regular meeting.
It'll be
Regular
the-
meeting, okay.
Regular meeting,
So I make a
okay.
motion, we continue this to our general meeting in November.
Second.
all right, there's a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, carried. Thank you. So that was
See,
C, all right. Close out C, go to D, consider approval of partnership with Habitat for Humanity to apply for federal funding for self-help infrastructure opportunity program dollars in support of Sand Hill Station that includes approximately 103 acres.
So again, Ms. Farah and Habitat Humanity is seeking a partnership with Town of Aberdeen to receive federal funding in support of Aberdeen Station that includes the 103 acres. That federal funding is named Self-Help for Infrastructure Opportunity Program. It's something that we've worked with Habitat for Humanity on in the past, and it places minimal administrative requirements and duties onto the town. We serve as essentially a middle person as the federal funding is awarded. Then we have signature authority and just minimal administrative. And Paul may want to add to this as well.
No, Mayor, this very same. We're really just serving a very slight administrative purpose for this, and it was done on one of the prior Habitat projects. It's kind of like similar grants we do where there's an applicant who's a business, there's an agency who's helping the applicant, like Partners in Progress used to do, and we would, execute the some of the paperwork, and be there really in name and support for the project. That's all this is, and this is at least the second time we've done this for a certain project, so it's a good project, it's a good program, so pretty little a little effort on our behalf, and Habitat has agreed to do all the paperwork and keep us out of trouble at all times, so,
We like a pass-through.
that's right. Exactly.
Point of
We're-
clarity, this is the Sand Hill Station,
Yeah,
not the Aberdeen, because in our
Station,
notes, it
it's
says
yeah,
Aberdeen.
it
Station.
does.
So just want to make sure for clarification
Yep,
for the paper
you're
and
right.
everyone else.
That
What-
was a typo on my part.
Sure, that's fine. I just. didn't know
Where,
if we
where
had a change
exactly
of
is this
plans here or
103
not.
acres?
So this is the old Height property.
Close to
across
Bernie,
from Sportsplex.
Bernie Hardware.
Oh, gotcha.
Off of Height?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
On
Height-
PD,
Height
kind of
Road,
yeah,
like Borders
off of
PD
PD.
Road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's right.
Make a motion that we,
Yes.
yeah.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of partnership with Habitat for Humanities to apply for federal funding for self-help infrastructure opportunity program dollars. Support of Sand Hill Station that includes approximately 103 acres.
Motion is second. Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Board.
All right, let's see where we are. That was D. All right, E, project ordinances.
Mayor, so in front of you, you've got, you've got the memorandum, which summarizes everything that follows this. This is really, it's really nothing really new. This is really just pulling out as a project ordinance like we've done with the Sportsplex, like we do with the public safety facility. You know, we put those in what we call project ordinances to keep them up because they go typically from year to year. They don't just go start and end on a single budget year. And if you recall, going back with the old ARP funds that we received, we converted those into enabled general fund monies. This is going back now, 2 years plus. And we had a general kind of placeholding general project ordinance that listed 4 or 5 different projects. It had the library, water and sewer, Old Aberdeen School, the library, and then contingency project. There might have been one other that I'm not thinking of. Downtown improvements. So those were all in there under one single project ordinance. Well, and really the better way to do project ordinance is to have them, each project gets its own ordinance, and that's what this is doing. And that is all it's doing. The other thing is it's slightly altering the money amounts, not radically, but it's actually lowering the total amount from what it was to a new amount. And you'll see that in each individual newly constructed project ordinance. So for instance, if we start with the first one, the old Aberdeen Elementary School renovation project, that was part of the special capital projects ordinance originally. It was $400,000, so now it's being pulled out, and it's going to be the old Aberdeen Elementary School project, and now it's been increased to $450,000. And where that extra $50,000 came from was really just from contingency and something that I called future projects. We just kind of got rid of those and moved them into other projects or just reduced the total amount. So that's just by way of example. So you look at the second one, the water and sewer projects, that new amount is $744,000 for just water and sewer projects. And there's still a little bit of work to be done on that one, but that's its own ordinance by itself for water and sewer projects. And we'll figure out exactly which project that is. So we'll be back for you probably on all of these with another amendment when we have a more specific water and sewer project. Most likely, that one will involve, there's a Highway 5 project that is coming up here pretty soon. Joe will probably talk about maybe in the next 2 weeks. That'll be probably a good piece of this. If you remember, we had thought early on that maybe some of that funding would be used for the Legacy Lakes addition for water, a well, but we've come up dry, literally, in terms of finding water in that area for a new well. So we're going to keep looking at that, but that's, right now, it's not going to happen for a while, so we're just putting that one on hold until later. So that's what the water and sewer projects will be, and there's others too to be considered. That'll be water and sewer, that could be some pretty significant projects. The next one, a little bit more to, kind of a little bit more tangible, I think. The downtown Aberdeen improvements, the parking lot improvements, crossings, whether it's railroad or walk crossings, some maybe sidewalk improvement in the downtown area. And that one, we actually increased from $200,000 in that placeholder ordinance under the special capital projects ordinance from $200,000 to $250,000. And again, a little bit of wiggle room there as projects come up, but just as a general manner, that's to improve our downtown area. And that really means downtown, right out here in this vicinity, really with road and again, infrastructure improvements. So that's a good set aside. We'll fill in the blanks on that a little bit more specifically as we go through things. So for instance, you could have in your annual budget, you could have an amount for $60,000 for a railroad crossing improvements, in the downtown area. And that could be a 1-year annual budget. We know it's gonna happen, here it comes. And then you could also have a parking lot improvement behind the planning building to do that parking that we're not sure how quickly it's going to happen, but it's going to be an amount. And let's say that the total budget for that's $90,000 or $100,000, and we decide to pull that from the downtown Aberdeen improvements project ordinance. It would be budgeted there, and it gives us a little bit more time to get that project done, but you can pull from both. So every time a downtown project comes up in the annual budget, doesn't mean it's coming from here. In fact, that would mean it's not. But if there's another general project, we will identify for the board, hey, this is intended to be funded through the special project ordinance, or in this case, the downtown Aberdeen project ordinance, not from the annual budget. So again, it's just giving us a little bit more of a working budget to choose from and to keep track of these projects. And the last one, the new library renovations. Now that one is really high, and I want to be clear on this. I don't want anybody to come back and say, hey, you gave us $705,000. That is not what this is saying. That's the total estimated improvements for the library. We think it'll be that much, give or take. If you look at the actual project ordinance, and it'll be my recommendation to approve these individually, you'll see that only $200,000, which we have consistently said, hey, this is for the new library building from the town. The rest of that money will come from other sources, whether it's fundraising, sponsorship, or a grant that either the town or the library group applies for. It'll come from other sources, and it will be over time. We're still trying to use that $200,000 to get this project moving, and we've had some good success and movement lately on that. But I just wanted to make sure no one pulls your sleeve and says, thank you for all that money you gave us the other night. We're still only on the hook for directly $200,000, but we have recognized that it's a bigger project than $200,000, and it will be over time. So does that make sense? I want to make sure we're all on the same page with that.
Because I have a question about
I
that,
appreciate you telling me that.
the exterior gardens, because I know they had, one time asked us about the park, and I didn't know if that meant now that we were actually taking that on as a project, or it was still going to be
The which one now?
the reading library, the reading park.
Across the street? Well, I would say no, we haven't really done anything
So
on
that's
that.
not what that
But that
80,000
could be part of the new library renovations if this board decides to make it part of it. Because it's a reading park, it's across the street, that could be, but that's a board decision for y'all to decide. I kind of feel like we need to get the brick and mortar and the renovations done, because I don't think we have enough money right now
Right.
to do it.
I
So
was
let's
just
kind
curious. I
of
hadn't
do
seen
that. But again, that could be added as part of that. The kind of ballparking of the 705, that's pretty lean and mean in terms of structure, parking, other things, but it could very well include, if there's money available, the garden, which I support. I think it's a great idea, but it's kind of first things first.
So what did you say, how would we word this if they ask us, I saw that we voted for the special project, 705,000. This is just an estimated,
Tell them that we have voted, that we're still on board to commit $200,000, but we have allowed them to go out and raise money for the remaining $505,000 through grants or sponsorships.
okay. But it could be that we could give them, it may turn out that that's what they get from us.
Not as of tonight, no.
Okay.
That is not tonight's motion. Tonight's
No,
motion
okay.
is just saying, this is going to cost roughly this amount. The town, and it's in
I
the, it's
see,
in
I
the
see,
actual,
I see.
it's in
This
the
is
actual ordinance.
expenditures.
It
Okay.
says town funds $200,000.
I got you. I
You
it.
see, the other ones have other sources of revenue,
All right.
right? So if the board, I mean, if there's any more questions, because I know it's a lot, but really, it's really not changing anything we've been talking about for 2 years. Move the amounts a little bit. It's just really getting it in a budgetary, organizational structure that makes sense.
So in
for
other
us to
words,
go
it
forward.
goes on Butch's 11 by 17 paper. It's
That's
each
right.
individual project.
You're going to have a bigger seat than what's up there now.
Yes,
Yeah. That's
yes.
right, that's right. But I would ask, when you make these approvals, if you could do them individually, 1 through 4, just for the record, sake of the record.
Someone make a motion?
So we need 4 separate motions, correct?
Yes.
As there are in there.
Yes.
I make a motion to amend the Special Project Development Fund, becoming the old Aberdeen Elementary School renovation project ordinance in the amount of $450,000.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That carries.
I make a motion to amend the water and sewer project ordinance in the amount of $744,000.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve a project ordinance for the new library in the amount of $705,000.
Second.
There's a second.
How
Discussion?
much did you say?
I'm just reading it straight out of here,
Okay.
$705,000.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
I'm just,
Who seconded it?
I did.
Okay, so it's been
that
seconded.
sounded like a lot of money.
All right, so it's been seconded. Further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries.
I make a motion to approve the project ordinance for the downtown improvements in the amount of $250,000.
Second.
Seconded. There was a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Talking about the, raising money for the new library, this, I don't know if anybody saw it. I may be quoting some figures or whatever. Did anybody go to that regional meeting in Carthage, the library meeting? Anybody go to that?
I did not get there.
It was, Aberdeen's library is in the regional system.
Right.
And they had a meeting, I believe it was last week. And
Sand Hills Regional.
this is secondhand knowledge because I wasn't there. But I heard or was told that the regional system listed what was going on in the other towns' libraries. I know Vass is in the system, Aberdeen, Pine Bluff.
Pinehurst is involved.
Yeah. All of them had numbers and facts and figures. Aberdeen had none. So at the regional meeting for the library system, all of these other libraries had so many children show up, so many people did this, so many people did that, on and on and on. This is what I was told, and like I said, I wasn't there. And you got to the little 900 square foot Aberdeen library. Well, what's going on over there? Oh, it was in the paper. Yeah, it was last week. But anyway, it just, what I'm trying to say is if these numbers, if this is what I was told is correct, every town that's in this system had something to say. Aberdeen had nothing to say. Now, that's not good for the town. It's not good for our citizens. We got a 900 square foot library that you can't do anything in. I mean, you can't have groups of children in there because there's not enough room.
Who would have been the person to speak up? The
Do what?
people that are currently there or the Friends of the Library at this meeting you're discussing?
No, this was in Carthage.
Right, these were members of the Sand Hill Regional Library
Yes,
group.
yes.
So it should have been someone from this local
Well,
page
I don't know
memorial,
who,
you would say?
I
or-
wasn't there, I don't
Right.
know who went, but what I'm understanding, and again, I'm hearing this secondhand, that other libraries said what they were doing. They had children in, they had this, they had that, and there was nothing said for Aberdeen. I don't know who was there, but that doesn't bode well for our town of 10,000 people
I didn't know about it.
that has a 900 square foot library. Whether you want to spend money on that library or not, we've got to have another library. We cannot have a town of 10,000 with a 900 square foot library.
You're right.
And then when they have a regional library system, what I heard, There was no program was said that Aberdeen was doing. There's nothing you can do over there. It's 900 square feet. What are you gonna do with it?
I get, I understand what you're saying. Even though the Friends of the Library had programs that are going on, they're totally separate,
That
right?
has nothing to do with this public library over here.
Okay,
Nothing to do with it, because that one over there is not part of the regional system. The regional system library is the Page Library, not proposed library. So we do have a library in Aberdeen.
right, and a part-time person that runs it.
So
yeah.
I'm just making that, and somebody can flush this out because I'm,
It'll change.
well, it will when we get a new library. I'm just
exactly, yeah.
saying, right now, we've got a library that's not helping many citizens in this town.
Well, the times I've gone in there and checked out books, I didn't really get a positive feeling that they embraced the new things that we're doing, but anyway, maybe that had something to do with it.
Whatever.
You don't have to report that, I said that.
Yeah, I just, going back to we're trying to finance money for the new library. They had a successful car show
Yes,
down at
the
the
lake.
lake Saturday, and I don't know how much money was raised. I hope they raised some money. They had 57, I think it was 57 cars that showed up. They have to pay, the cars that show up have to pay to enter their car. So there's an entry fee, and then they also had books for sale. They also had a silent auction. I have no idea how much money they raised. I hope they did raise some money, because all that money goes into this, trying to get a new library in Aberdeen.
What about the Sardine Festival?
And the Sardine Festival was the weekend before that. And so we've had a lot of activity in Aberdeen. But anyway, that's what I was bringing up about the library. Anyone else? This is down to old business.
This past week, also, the Charters of Freedom were dedicated in Carthage.
Yes.
It's I don't know if it's bronze or brass, but it's copies of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Worth going to see if you haven't been up there yet.
I saw where they were doing that. I haven't seen them since, I saw the panels before they put them on there, but that would be a good trip for
Yeah,
anybody
I've been
to go
reading
see
about it in the
Carthage.
paper, in the pilot, but I never actually got any kind of, invitation to go, so I wasn't aware it already happened until I saw it in the
They'll
paper.
invite you.
Did you go?
Yeah, I bought a brick also
Oh, good,
before.
okay.
Anyone else with
I just
other
want,
business?
okay, I just want to mention that I just recently seen this Aberdeen Parks and Recreation Department brochure. And I don't know how new it is. Did it just come out? I just saw it, and I wanted to say it is a great program. I mean, someone has done a super job with this.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, they've been in print for a while, but I'm like you, I happened upon it somewhere in
I had
another
not seen
store,
it.
and then thought, wow, this is nice,
It
so,
is wonderful.
I just
It's a
didn't know
wonderful
it.
brochure.
yeah. It's great.
It's beautiful. They've done a great job with it.
Anyone else with other business? I have one, if everybody would give me just a few minutes. The town of Aberdeen was chartered in 1893 by the state of North Carolina. Prior to that, a few years prior to that, the name was changed from Blues Crossing, or Blues, to Aberdeen. But in 1893, it was actually chartered. I can't find the date, the month and day of that charter. It's 1893 by the state, but I don't know what day and month that took place, is what I'm trying to say. I tried to look it up, and I couldn't find it online. And maybe there's something down here that would say the month and day. And there's a reason I'm bringing this up. If you ever get on eBay, you can find anything. I'm telling you, it's out there. If you're looking for anything, if you search long enough, you'll find it. My son was looking for something, and he sent me a message, said, I need to go online and check something out, which I did. And it wound up, I had to bid on it, and because nothing's free on eBay. So I wound up buying it, and I know I paid too much money for it, but that was my fault. But I have it here in front of me. It's a yellowed piece of paper on one side. It's got a beautiful heading up here, which says Tarbell Lumber Company, manufacturers and dealers in longleaf yellow pine, flooring, ceilings, and finishings, lumber, special facilities for dressing large sizes. This is a bill of sale. Guess what the date is? The date is September the 28th, 1893. Wow. This was the year the town was chartered. Now, somebody had this in their drawer for 100 and some years, and it came up on eBay, so I wound up getting it. It says, in the print, now here's what's interesting. It says, on the letterhead, it says Aberdeen, NC, then a blank line for the date. So the town of Aberdeen, I think, was named in 1890, I believe, but it wasn't chartered until 1893. So sometime between 1890 and 1893, this piece of paper was printed with Aberdeen on it. Now, you have to understand the history on this, because this is, I don't know how many pieces of paper are still out there from the year this town was chartered. And it's the Tarbell Company, and it was sent to a Mr. Smith in Charleston, South Carolina, and the text is they're selling lumber. Now, well, that's what it is. It's a lumber company. Tarbell Lumber Company selling lumber to somebody in Charleston, South Carolina, Mr. Smith. The C.D. Tarbell was treasurer, and it says up here Southern Pines, but this says J. Rowlands, general manager, Aberdeen, North Carolina. And I may be mistaken on J. Rowlands, but I think he was a Canadian, and when the lumber company went out or wasn't in existence anymore, my understanding is he went back to Canada. So he came to Aberdeen with this company, and they were cutting down every pine tree from here to West End to Candor. As far as they could run the railroad, they were cutting down pine trees. So this is how this company was started, Tarbell Lumber Company. Now, where was it? I was
Tarbell
thinking.
Street, probably.
No, I was thinking where it was, and I was wrong. My understanding, it was over here where Aberdeen Coca-Cola is today. That's where Tarbell Lumber Company was in 1893, was over here on South Street. I had it wrong. I thought it was over here closer to the A&R Railroad track, but it's not.
Wouldn't you think the street might have been named after them, possibly?
what?
Tarbell Street.
Yes, that's it. It's Tarbell Lumber. There it is right there.
Right
That's
here.
how we got the town,
Yeah.
the street named Tarbell Street. And this just goes on. It's hard to read. It's in script. Some of it, you can read most of it. But anyway, this is a very old piece of
It's
paper,
a treasure,
number one.
yeah.
And
That's
it's the
awesome.
year the town was chartered, 1893. I'd love to find out, and you probably have it, the date. I'd like to know if this was prior to the date or after the date that the town was chartered, because this is September, almost the end of September. But
Wouldn't it have to have been chartered prior in order to
No,
put Aberdeen on there?
no, it was the name was Aberdeen,
Oh, okay.
and I think
Town.
1890.
Okay.
And then by 1893, the town got chartered. I think that's the history. I may have some of that wrong.
That's what you're
But
saying.
that's, yeah, I think it was, the town had a name before it got chartered, I believe. So, I'm gonna have to find out and check what the actual date is. If we ever get a museum in Aberdeen, in that new library, or maybe we can use the old library, these are things that need to go in. This is our history. I've got it in my hand. I don't know of another piece of paper that's dated 1893. I'm sure there's some out there. But here's one that came back to Aberdeen from 1893. And I'll tell you where this came from. When I found it on eBay, you know where this paper was? It was in Florida. So if you look on eBay, you can find anything you want to find.
Somebody in Charleston
Yeah,
got the sale, because maybe they moved down.
it was in Charleston, and somehow it got to Florida, and that's, all these years later, guess where it is? It's right back in Aberdeen.
Well,
So-
make sure it gets framed properly,
Yeah,
so
I've
that
got-
it gets preserved.
I've got to get it done correctly, and I'm gonna find out, Regina can find me the date when it was actually chartered. But if we can get somewhere to put it, this can go in a museum wherever it turns out to be. So anyway, just a little bit of history right here. If anybody would like to look at it, I have it right here. So anyone else with other business? Nope. Okay, Ms. Wilma?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.